In this video I'm going to show you how to get the best loot every time the blood moon rolls around in 7 Days to Die. And I'll show you this by comparing the loot gathered on two identical Horde Nights with just a few key differences between the two. And by following the tips in this video you can carve literally weeks off of how long it takes to get level 6 weapons, tools and armour, augers, chainsaws and all the rest. So, onto the test. To kick things off, I loaded a save game back up from day 42 of one of my playthroughs, and I played the Horde as if I was actually playing the game, i.e. there's no theory here, these are all real results. The most important part when it comes to loot is the loot stage, and for this test my character was at a loot stage of 64. Now without getting ahead of ourselves right now, the thing to know about this number is that the higher the number, the better the chance you'll have of finding better loot. And more often. Now just a quick side note, if you're wondering about the actual base design, I have some info on that later in this video, but for now let's have a look at the entire haul of loot from this day 42 Blood Moon Horde. So I popped an eye candy to increase my loot stage just a little bit with the bonus that gives, opened all the bags, stuck them all in this box, and as we can see a few decent bits and pieces, some ammo, some parts, some food. It's okay, but you want better loot than this, that's why you're watching this video. So what do you need to do? Well, quite simply, you need to increase your loot stage. And aside from general game progression that raises the loot stage, the more XP you gain over time, there are two other big factors that you can take advantage of to quickly leapfrog many levels and to get the best stuff much faster. Now the first one of these two factors is the biome loot stage multiplier. So this first test I ran in the pine forest, in the forest biome, and so when gathering the loot and opening the loot bags, my base loot stage was all that was taken into account. Now if you're playing in Navezgane where you still have the burnt forest, then the biome loot stage multiplier for that is 50% plus 10. The desert biome has the same bonus as the burnt forest. Snow has a 100% bonus plus 20, and the wasteland is 150% plus 30. So if you have a loot stage of 100, 150% of that is 150, so that makes 250, plus 30 makes 280. Now like I said, our loot stage was 64 at the start of this Horde test in the forest biome, so let's take a look at how that number changes if we simply just enter another biome. So forest stays as it is, 64, desert 105, snow 145 and wasteland 186. Now these numbers don't quite line up perfectly because I think there must be some rounding up or down happening in the background, but it's close enough. So knowing that the higher the loot stage, the better loot you're going to get, what number should you be aiming for? The point at which you're going to unlock the highest tier items is with a loot stage of 192. As you go higher you'll get more opportunities to get more of that good stuff, but 192 is the magic number for actually unlocking the possibility of getting those best items when you loot containers. Now with that said, the second way to increase quickly your loot stage on a Horde night is to simply build your Horde base actually on a pre-existing POI, because every building in the game has another loot stage bonus that's based on its core difficulty or its tier. So if you're not familiar with the tier system of buildings in 7 Days to Die, then the best way to identify in-game which tier a building is to locate the stash at the end of the POI. Tier 1s have this crappy looking box as its main loot, they're normally quite small and can be done quite easily. Tier 2 has this leather trunk at the end. Tier 3 has this metallic looking locked container. Tier 4 is the smaller of these two similar looking chests, and Tier 5 is this monster of a hardened chest. So if you want to use these ideas to max your loot stage out as quickly as possible, you really want to be building on a Tier 5 POI, and luckily enough it just so happens that those are the biggest with the much more room to build on anyway, so you don't have to actually convert the POI. Many of these Tier 5s have a car park that you can build your own entire base from scratch, actually just in the car park, and still get that bonus. Now with this all said, at the time of this video 7 Days to Die is at Alpha 20, and it's just been announced actually that Alpha 21 is actively going to display a danger level on screen at all times. So I expect this to roughly represent the biome and POI tier combination we're talking about here. So if you're watching this after Alpha 21 comes out, then this is all still relevant, I think, looking into the future, but it's just going to make this whole process a bit easier because you've got something on screen telling you. But long story short, just by being on one of these POIs, you're going to get a bonus added to your loot stage. And in the example where my loot stage is 64, being on a tier 5 POI increases the loot stage all the way up to 216. So if you can handle the difficulty of being in the wasteland on a tier 5 POI, this is the quickest, if maybe not the easiest, it's the quickest way to fast track getting the absolute best Horde Night loot possible. Now, one other quick note before we look at the results of my Wasteland tier 5 Horde test is that you can also increase your loot stage by other means, of course, like wearing lucky goggles and eating an eye candy before looting. And if you want the best loot the fastest, then always do that. And then there's also the Lucky Looter skill as of Alpha 20, which increases your loot stage, but on their own and individually, none of those hold a candle to simply setting up a Wasteland tier 5 Horde base in terms of getting to the best stuff the fastest. But just how much better can this loot be? Well, let's take a look at the results of me running this exact same Horde test with my base within the boundaries of a tier 5 POI in the Wasteland. So here's the haul, and as we can see, the items and their overall quality are much higher from the Wasteland Horde. There's a number of level 6 steel armour and tools, much more ammo, augers, chainsaws, auto shotguns. Now, looking at this visibly, it's a much better haul. But how can we compare precisely how much better? Well, let's sell it all to the trader. So here's what I did to give us a precise comparison. First, I repaired everything that could be repaired, and then I ate a sugar butt to get the increased bartering skill to get better prices, and then I sold the entire haul from each of these Horde Nights to the local trader, and here's how much money we made at the end of the day. Now, part of the reason this works so well for me is because of the base design that I followed, which, to be honest, is quite overpowered, and if you follow the design, it will give you the safest of spaces to hang out even in the Wasteland. And these key base design concepts are revealed in full in this next video.